come up and join me, please? On Friday and on Saturday, we had a lentil festival. You guys know what a lentil is? Well, this is not a children's service to explain to you what a lentil is. It's a kind of bean that you can use it for almost everything. But at the lentil festival, we had a booth and we were handing out ice water, ice cold water to everybody, and everybody who helped in big ways, little ways, just came by and said, "Hi, please stand up and say, yeah." All right, anyway, at the Lentil Festival, one of the things that we want to do is kind of have something that's interactive, but that helps people understand what it means to be a Lutheran. And last year, with the 500th anniversary, we had like 8 questions to have to answer, but it was like impossible. Even the Lutherans weren't getting the answers, right? And so I thought, okay, what can I do, what can I do, what can I do? And I thought, okay, this is not perfect, but we have the Wheel of Life this time. And the whole idea was that people would come up and they would spin the Wheel of Life. And some people spun it so that it was like spin for 10 minutes. And then it would either land on one of 2 things. It either said grace, and grace is a word that means a free and unmerited gift. So let's just give it to you. Or, oops, try again. What did I get? Oops, try again. There was one person that it took them 10 times. Uh-oh, that's 2. Woo! Grace. And once you hit grace, and I was talking to people and saying, just keep spinning and just keep spinning. And it's kind of a life lesson here, that you just have to pick yourself up, dust and, get the dirt off your shoes and just move forward. And I said, the only way that you lose is if you stop. Stop trying, right? Anybody want to just do one just for fun? Got it? Go ahead and come on up. Give it a spin. Oops, try again. Yay, Grace! And is there anybody here that can't have candy?
I can.
You can? Okay. Well, what we did yesterday is that everyone, when they landed on Grace, got a piece of candy. So, actually, Declan, I'm going to have you do that and go to Declan and get a piece of candy, because ultimately it's like all grace, right? Good. Thanks, you guys. There he is. And we can move this now so we can actually see. Ooh, some other things. This happened yesterday too, where spinning the wheel only took so much time, but choosing candy, that was the toughest part. Just as a quick prelude to what Libby is going to be saying, for the last 45 weeks we've been in the story of Ruth. We've wrapped up the story of Ruth now, and we're moving into a period of time where with the narrative lectionary, we're going to be looking at discipleship and what does it mean to be a follower. And so we're moving into the Gospel of Matthew. And Libby, you can go ahead and start reading.
It's tough to compete with candy.
Oh, I know.
The reading for today is from the 6th chapter of Matthew. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust consume and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust consumes and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light in you is darkness, how great is the darkness? No one can serve 2 masters, for a slave will either hate the one and love the other, or be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and wealth. Therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat, or what you will drink, or about your body, or what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air. They neither sow, nor reap, nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not of more value than they? And can any of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your span of life? And why do you worry about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. Yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not clothed like one of these. But if God so clothes the grass of the field, which is alive today and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, will he not much more clothe you, you of little faith? Therefore do not worry, saying, what will we eat, or what will we drink, or what will we wear? For it is the Gentiles who strive for all these things, and indeed your heavenly Father knows that you need all these things. But strive first for the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. So do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will bring worries of its own. Today's trouble is enough for today. Word of God, word of life.
Thanks be to God.
That almost just like it does it right there. I should just have you read that over again and just think about all the different ways that you could make that a part of your life. But I'm going to preach a little bit, at least. How many people here grew up during the Great Depression? Linda's grandma, Grandma Agnes, grew up during the Great Depression. And there were certain things that were just simply imprinted into her brain and into her life as a result. How long did the Great Depression last? Let's see, 29 until about 11 years. And yet, all the way through her life, and one of the things that really was just kind of drilled into her was she could not waste anything at all. When she'd be baking a cake, when she was mixing up the cake, all of the kids would come gather around, right? And say, and Grandma Agnes would say, "Don't worry, you can lick the bowl." They didn't think about eggs and stuff like that. Nobody died. But anyway, you can lick the bowl. But the bad joke is that Grandma Agnes was the absolute queen of being able to take a spatula, and I gotta tell you, because I didn't watch it later after I married Linda, and Grandma Agnes was baking a cake, and there was not a molecule left on that bowl. She was so good with that spatula that licking the bowl was a joke. She might as well just have taken the bowl and put it back up into the cupboard because it was so clean. It was just, and do other people kind of resonate with what I'm talking about? That if you've lived through that time, it really becomes a part of your life so that even when the depression is over, you still carry it with you. One of the things that I want us to look at today, and it will be kind of a prelude because we'll be moving into some other things, is that the church also kind of went through what you might call the Great Depression. Now, the Great Depression for Western Europe lasted about 500 years, so it was a little bit more. We call it the Dark Ages. Anybody around during? It was pretty funny because the synod made a mistake when they first wrote down the year of my ordination, and I was actually not the year of my ordination, but the year that I came into the congregation, and I came into the congregation in Linden in December, on December the 13th. And so making a mistake, they wrote the year of your ordination 1213. And for 3 years, because it took the church 3 years to change its mistake, for 3 years I would get the award for being the oldest pastor. Oh yeah! You know, he came to that congregation in the year 1213. Anyway, so nobody has been here. But yet, interestingly enough, we are still feeling the effects of the Dark Ages, of that Great Depression. Because it really changed, it kind of fundamentally changed some things within the church. Living during the Dark Ages was not a pleasant thing. I mean, people barely had enough to eat. It was dark, it was cold, it was grim. You know, barbarians were threatening to come in and barbarians did kind of come in from all sides. The Romans built a wall, but it didn't do any good. The barbarians came in anyway, and in some cases Anyway, the whole thing was just an absolute catastrophe. It was a mess. And people's lives were short and brutal. And one of the things that was really kind of drilled into people was when life is really awful, when life is really grim, and when you're threatening, when you're threatened with starvation, but then if starvation doesn't get you, the plague will. How many people here have been to Norway? There's a valley in Norway called Mandal. It means man's valley. And they say it's called Mandal because after the plague there was one man left alive in that valley. I mean, it was so bad that people were just getting wiped out, 90% of the population. When you're in that kind of a situation, what the church shifted to and moved to was really focusing on what are we going to do when we get out of this? Life is kind of HE double toothpicks right now. So we know what that feels like. And so let's kind of focus on how wonderful life is going to be when we all go to heaven. Now, it was a shift. It was a change in the church. But the problem is, we got stuck. And so pretty soon, it just became the understanding of people that being a Christian was really all about, am I going to make it to heaven or not? 500 years later. And it is really hard. Just like it was impossible to get Grandma Agnes to leave just a little bit of cookie dough or cake dough in the bowl, it's really hard for us to break out of that too. But if you actually go back and if you read the Gospels, if you really dig in and let the Gospels just simply happen to you, if you read the Bible, yes, going to heaven is part of it, or being with God is probably a better definition of that. It's all part of it. But it is by no means the whole thing. And in fact, being a follower of Christ, being a follower of Jesus, is mostly what Jesus will talk about. In fact, he'll talk a lot about things like, why are you worried? Stop worrying. Stop worrying about what's going to happen tomorrow. Just get on with your life today. That God is not off in some far-off place, just kind of letting us bumble along and do our own thing down here until that time when we finally get to escape this veil of tears and go up and be with Him. But that God is actively involved in our lives here. As the Bible says, this is the God in whom we move and live and have our being. Other church fathers and mothers would talk about God swimming through the world like a whale swims through the water. That it's just this incredible image of God infusing and being in everything. And so when you read the Gospels and when you realize what it means to be a disciple of Christ, you suddenly begin to realize that God has expectations. Now, they don't tend to be kind of these big moral expectations so that you'll make it to heaven. God simply has expectations that if you are one of my followers, then guess what? You get to be a part of this whole thing that I'm working on, says God. This whole thing where I am trying to put the world back together again. I will never, ever, ever forget when Kirsten was in preschool and the kids had made clay figures. And I went and I picked up Kirsten and she had this clay figure. And somewhere along the line, if you go into my office is filled with frogs. It looks like one of the plagues. But somebody in the congregation had decided he likes frogs. And I couldn't tell them no. And so now I have like 3,000 frogs. But Kirsten thought that, oh, Daddy likes frogs. And so she had made this frog. It kind of looks like an Edvard Munch frog. It's kind of like, but she had made it. And we were walking out from preschool, and horror of horrors, I dropped it. And it broke in half. And Kirsten was just a wreck. She's not here today. I probably should ask her if she's ever gotten over it. But I remember kneeling down with her, taking these two pieces of the frog, and telling her, Kirsten, it's okay, Kirsten. Kirsten, it's okay. It's the thought that counts. It doesn't matter. It's the thought that counts. And Kirsten looked up at me. I can still see her face just, and she says, yes, Daddy, it does matter. It matters a lot. So Daddy found glue, and it still sits in my office to this day, to remind me that there are things that matter a lot. We are looking at a broken world, and God is weeping over this broken world, and sometimes we'll say to ourselves, it's okay, it doesn't matter. You see, and if you just think, whoa, I'm going off to heaven, you can easily say, that's okay, it doesn't matter. But God is weeping over this broken world and saying it matters a lot. Because my love for each one of you, my love for this whole world is so intense and so passionate that when I see something broken, it just breaks my heart too, says God. And I really want all of you to be a part of this whole gluing the world back together business that God has been working on since the beginning of time. What does it mean to be a follower, not just a believer? Marcus Borg, wonderful theologian, says that saying, I believe in Jesus, or I believe that Jesus is my personal Lord and Savior, it might be fine, but he said that's salvation by syllables. It's saying the right thing and thinking that that's going to be, no, because it matters a lot, not just about you, but about everyone. And so God calls us to be disciples. God calls us to be followers, to be workers with God at putting this whole thing back together again. And where do you start? With you. Knowing that you are so deeply loved that no matter how broken you are, that God has you wrapped up in God's hands and is putting the pieces back. Knowing that that love can then just let you, because there's not one of us that isn't broken in some way or another, that we can then reach out to other broken people and say, it matters. And is there some way that I can make even just your moment a little bit better? We may not be able to heal the world all by ourselves, but boy, we can give hugs. And the healing that happens, we can hand out glasses of cold water and just say, it's as simple as this, doing something kind, good for someone right here and right now. You are the light of the world. You are a city, not a hill. You are the salt of the earth. It matters. And you get to be a part of it. How cool is that? Amen.